The hallway was alive with noise, sneakers squeaking against the polished floor, lockers slamming, laughter bouncing off the walls. Middle school always ended in chaos, but in the middle of the chaos was Ethan Walker, clutching tightly to something most people wouldn't look at twice, a crumpled white plastic bag. While his classmates paraded with bright backpacks adorned with logos, shiny sports bags, or designer satchels, Ethan held the thin handles of that bag so firmly that his knuckles turned white. He walked with his head slightly lowered, hoping no one would notice. But of course, someone always did. "Hey, look over here." The voice belonged to Kyle Matthews, tall, broad-shouldered, and always the loudest in the room. Kyle smirked, nudging his friends. "Ethan's bringing his garbage to school again. Careful, guys, it might stink." Laughter erupted, sharp and cruel. Ethan's ears burned. His pace quickened, but the sound of their mocking footsteps followed him. "What's in there, Ethan?" Kyle sneered. "Banana peels? Rotten eggs? Or maybe that's all your family owns." The laughter grew louder, echoing in Ethan's chest like a drumbeat of shame. Ethan said nothing. He kept walking, clutching the bag tighter, afraid even the air might rip it open. The world didn't know, the world didn't care what was inside. To them, he was just a poor boy with a plastic bag. But to Ethan, the contents of that bag were everything. The apartment door creaked open, and Ethan slipped inside. Their two-room apartment was small, with wallpaper peeling from the edges and a faint smell of cleaning supplies. The only luxury his mother allowed herself to keep things neat, even if they had little. He carefully placed the bag on their rickety table. Slowly, as if revealing something sacred, he pulled out its contents. A stack of worn-out notebooks, their covers bent, pages stuffed with sketches, diagrams, and notes written in his hurried hand. Each notebook was filled with dreams. Some pages contained machines he designed out of scrap, a tiny windmill from broken fan blades, a radio pieced together with discarded wires. Others held mathematical equations he'd studied long past bedtime, and others, stories, ideas, blueprint of a future where he could invent things that made people's lives easier. "Rough day again?" His mother's voice floated in from the kitchen. Ethan quickly shoved the notebooks back in the bag. "It's fine, Mom." She came into the room, wiping her hands on her apron. Lines of exhaustion crossed her face, but her eyes were warm. "They teased you again, didn't they?" Ethan hesitated, then shook his head. "No, just school stuff." Her lips pressed into a thin line. She knew he was lying, but she didn't push. Instead, she placed a hand on his shoulder. "Don't let them make you feel small. What you carry in that bag," she tapped the plastic handles gently, "is bigger than they'll ever understand." Ethan swallowed the lump in his throat. He wanted to believe her. So he opened a notebook and began sketching again, this time a design for a solar-powered charger. He imagined children in villages with no electricity, holding a simple device that could light their nights. His classmates saw trash. His mother saw treasure. Ethan only hoped that one day the world would see it too. The next morning started the same, Ethan gripping his plastic bag, walking quickly through the hall. But Kyle was waiting. "Trash boy," Kyle shouted, and in 2 strides he was in front of Ethan. "Let's see what's inside today." Ethan tried to dodge, but Kyle grabbed at the bag. The handle stretched dangerously, and Ethan's heart raced. "Stop," he shouted, louder than he'd ever dared before. Kyle smirked. "What? Are you hiding gold in here?" He yanked hard. The bag tore slightly, and one of Ethan's notebooks tumbled to the ground. Pages fluttered across the floor, like loose feathers. The crowd of students circled instantly, curious and entertained. Ethan lunged, scooping up his work, but a page slipped beneath Kyle's foot. Kyle stomped on it with satisfaction, grinding dirt into the paper. "Nice drawings, trash boy," Kyle sneered. "What is this supposed to be? A spaceship? You think you're some kind of genius." But then a murmur spread among the students. One boy bent down, picking up another page. His eyes widened. "Wait, this looks like a real design. Look at this. It's like an engine or something." Another leaned over. "Yeah, these numbers, they're complicated. I don't even get them." For a moment, the laughter stopped. Curiosity filled the silence. Ethan stood frozen, his notebooks pressed to his chest. For once, people weren't mocking. They were looking, seeing. But Kyle wasn't about to lose control. He shoved the pages back into Ethan's arms. "Don't be fooled," he said loudly. "It's just trash like him." The crowd chuckled nervously, siding with the bully again. Ethan felt his throat tighten. He wanted to scream, to tell them all what those notebooks meant. Instead, he turned and ran. That night, sitting alone at his desk, he stared at the torn plastic bag. Part of him wanted to throw it away, to give up, but then his mother's words echoed. "What you carry in that bag is bigger than they'll ever understand." So he picked up his pencil and kept drawing. The library was quiet, filled with the smell of old paper and the occasional cough. Ethan sat in the corner, bent over his notebook, sketching the circuitry for his solar charger. He didn't notice the shadow at his table until a voice said softly, "That's brilliant." Ethan looked up in shock. Standing there was Ms. Carter, the new science teacher. She held one of his loose pages. "Did you draw this?" she asked, her eyes wide with genuine admiration. Yeah," Ethan muttered, embarrassed. "Ethan," she said, lowering her voice, "do you realize this design could actually work? With a few adjustments, you could create a functioning prototype. This isn't child's play. This is engineering." Ethan blinked. No teacher had ever said that to him. Ms. Carter smiled warmly. "Would you like to join the STEM club? I think you'd fit right in. We could use someone with your talent." Ethan's instinct was to refuse. He imagined the laughter, the teasing if people saw him try and belong. But something in Ms. Carter's eyes, a spark of belief, made him nod. "Okay," he whispered. And so, for the first time, Ethan's plastic bag wasn't just a shield. It was an invitation to a world where his ideas mattered. Weeks flew by. Every afternoon, Ethan stayed late in the science lab, tinkering with wires, small solar panels, and batteries. His charger prototype began to take shape, clunky, homemade, but working. One evening, Ms. Carter handed him a flyer. "Young Innovators State Competition." "I think you should enter," she said firmly. Ethan's heart pounded. "Me? I'd be laughed off the stage." "No," she said, "they'll see you for who you are, a creator." The day of the competition arrived. The hall was filled with polished displays, posters with professional logos, and kids wearing suits. Ethan stood in his plain shirt, his charger resting on a small table beside his worn notebooks. When the judges approached, Ethan's voice wavered at first. "This device, it's a portable solar charger. It can power small electronics in areas without electricity. It's cheap and anyone can build it." The judges leaned in. He opened his notebooks, showing diagrams and calculations. His hands trembled, but his passion steadied his words. By the time he finished, one judge whispered, "This is remarkable." At the back, Kyle, who had tagged along, smirking, suddenly shifted uncomfortably. When the winners were announced, Ethan heard his name. First place. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. Then applause erupted, loud and thunderous. People were cheering for him. Ethan clutched his plastic bag tighter, tears stinging his eyes. News spread quickly. Teen with plastic bag wins science competition. Local reporters interviewed him, fascinated by his story. A technology company contacted Ms. Carter, offering to mentor Ethan and help him develop his invention. At school, the laughter vanished. Students who once mocked him now stopped him in the hall. "Hey, Ethan, can I see your charger? Can you explain that design again?" Even Kyle, red-faced, mumbled half-hearted, "Congrats." But Ethan wasn't bitter. He knew the bag didn't make him small. Their cruelty did. Now he carried it proudly. The plastic bag had transformed from a symbol of poverty into a symbol of resilience. Years later, Ethan stood on a vast stage in front of an international audience. He was no longer the boy with the plastic bag. He was an inventor, an entrepreneur, a visionary. Behind him, a large screen displayed his newest project, affordable solar-powered devices that were now used in rural areas across the globe, bringing light and power where there had once been darkness. As applause thundered, Ethan spotted his mother in the front row, tears streaming down her face. He stepped down and hugged her. "You carried your dreams in a plastic bag," she whispered. Ethan smiled, his eyes wet. "It was never about the bag, Mom. It was about what was inside." And the world, which had once mocked him, now celebrated the boy who proved that greatness could be carried in even the humblest of packages. The plastic bag had held more than paper and sketches. It had held hope, courage, and the power to change lives.